I think the biggest thing that your listeners are going to want to know, because of my opposition to it for many, many years, is that medical marijuana for the first time passed the Kentucky State Senate last night with a pretty strong bipartisan vote. Mm-hmm. And it was on your show a few weeks ago, Larry, where I told your listeners that I had moderated my position a little bit on medical marijuana, mm-hmm. and that I was keeping an open mind. Mm-hmm. I knew that President Stivers and Senator Steve West from Bourbon County were working on a version of the bill with a tight, focused approach to medical marijuana. So it passed the Senate. It goes to the House. I predict they will pass it on March 29th, or actually they can pass it on March 30th because it'll require a second reading on March 29th. And it's a very tightly focused bill that will allow medical marijuana for only a small number of afflictions, and it will only be available in non-smokable forms. And it's medical conditions that would qualify someone to use the product include cancer, chronic types of pain, epilepsy, multiple sclerosis, muscle spasms, chronic nausea, and post-traumatic stress disorder. It's Senate Bill 47, if people want to follow its progress. I guess people were pretty excited when I voted yes in committee earlier this week. I'd only told, I think, less than 5 people that I was planning to vote yes. I told my 2 adult children, who had been urging me for a couple of years to take a more open-minded approach on medical marijuana. And my girlfriend knew that I was going to vote yes, and maybe 1 or 2 other people. But I kept it very close. It was a very private and personal decision that I made over a really a long journey for me on this issue, with a lot of people who had appealed to me for relief from various afflictions that they were suffering from. And I had to separate out, the pro-pot smoking crowd, because I'm never going to be for recreational marijuana. I'm very much anti-drug. I believe it is a slippery slope and an entry point to other drug use that's even worse. And I had to, in my mind, separate the angry, nasty, pejorative pleas coming from the pot smokers and focus in on the suffering. And Eric and Michelle Crawford from Mason County have been coming there to Frankfort for years and advocating for its passage in such a classy manner, and many other people like them, including a woman from my district up in Dry Ridge who came to see me, and she said, I support you on everything else that you stand for except your opposition to medical marijuana. And she said that she just couldn't understand why I couldn't get there. And she told me about her affliction with seizures, debilitating seizures, and how she would go to other states to get medical marijuana, and they give her so much relief. So I voted yes, and it probably gave the bill some momentum, and some other members of our caucus looked at the tightly constructed bill, and it passed last night to a lot of cheers and applause in the Senate gallery.
We're talking with Senator Damon Thayer, and specifically what we're talking about now is that the medical marijuana legislation is now moving on to Governor Beshear's desk.
No. It still has to pass the House.
It's on the House.
Yeah,
I missed my mistake. It's still in the House.
But he's going to sign it, I'm sure.
Yeah, so that's the reason why you have the luxury of doing it in the last 2 days of the sessions, because there really is no concern about having to override a veto.
Correct. That's correct.
Yeah. During the week, we've had some people that have asked questions and wanted me to address a couple of issues on this front. So I made some notes over the week, over the course of the week, and one of them as it pertains to the kinds of forms that the medical marijuana would be dispensed in. So it's So we're talking about it's not going to be smokables. It's going to be edibles. What about pills or caplets? Is there anything in the legislation that dictates even beyond non-smokable versions of medical marijuana that would be permissible to be dispensed in?
I think it's tincture is a really popular application.
What is it again?
A tincture, tincture, a tincture. You know where
what is that?
You know where you've got a little squirt bottle and you take a little dose and you it's applied orally under the tongue. I guess I don't know. I've never tried it or had to use it, thankfully, but. So it'd be like in a liquid form, a gummy, edibles. I think that leaf is going to be allowed. Now, one thing we need to remember is if the bill passes the House and is signed in law by the governor, it wouldn't take effect until January 1 of 2025. And part of the reason there is we funded a study of medical marijuana at the University of Kentucky, and we still have another full session in 2024 where we could make adjustments to the bill based on anything that comes out of that research that is useful. So patients are going to have to register and receive a two-step approval process for a ID card that would allow them to purchase medical marijuana. It's 18 years and older to possess, purchase, or acquire medicinal cannabis without the assistance of a designated caregiver. It will create separate licenses for cultivators, dispensers, and producers. And the Kentucky Cabinet for Health and Family Services will get to develop the regulations that will sort of govern the day-to-day usage of the product.
Mm-hmm. One of the other questions about the forms that it would be dispensed in regarding kids and children and gummies, that it would be easy to fool people. Like a teenager could have a medical marijuana in the form of gummies, and how they could bring those to school, and teachers and administrators or even police officers might not be aware. They might just think it's just regular gummy bears. Is there any? I mean, I don't know how you would even address that, but is there any addressing about how you would designate whether or how someone would know whether something is a medical marijuana gummy? I mean, is there even a way to do that?
That's going to have to be addressed in the regulatory process. We pass laws that are as specific as they can be, but then we give, because we're a part-time citizen legislature that can't micromanage the process, we give the regulatory authority to a cabinet agency to develop that. And that's a concern of mine. And I have to be honest, this was not an easy vote for me. Look, I'm a stubborn middle-aged guy who very rarely changes his mind, and I'm pretty old-fashioned in set in my ways. And I grew up during the Reagan 80s with the DARE campaign and the Just Say No to Drugs. And I've never, let alone smoked a cigarette, let alone pot or any other sort of drug. I'm very negative on this. And all of my colleagues who voted no and gave good floor speeches about why they voted no, I agree with everything they say. And one of those points that you just made is about, we have to be able to keep this away from kids. I mean, we just passed a bill last night outlawing the Delta-8 THC levels that are becoming a problem in kids who are as young as middle school age.
One last question on this front, Senator, before we take our break. People have raised the issues. First of all, the medical marijuana that people will have access to will have medicinal benefits. But will they be the kinds of formulas and forms of marijuana that would give a high? And the reason why I ask this is because people wonder about companies and who might have policies regarding drug testing. And would people who have prescriptions for medical marijuana, would they be exempted from being able to be punished for testing positive for marijuana or drugs?
Another great point. I had people tell me that you've been talking about the issue all week long, and my name came up a few times. And, those are good questions, legitimate questions that will probably be answered in the regulatory process. But I think those are really good points and things that have to be considered.
Is that one of the reasons? I mean, you mentioned about it won't be implemented until January 1st of 2025. I mean, as I understand, the reason why it's 2 years out is to give the ability to come back and readdress these kinds of things next year, as you gather more information about the implementation process.
Yes. I mean, I think we need to be contemplative about this. Look what's working in other states. I mean, Colorado and Michigan, which are full-on recreational marijuana states, are having major problems right now. The marijuana industry in Michigan is in total collapse. Too much supply, and they've got problems. So one thing about Kentucky being last at doing a lot of things is we can learn from those who went before us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my sister lives in Oregon, and of course they have medical and recreational marijuana there, and and they've expressed to me that they were in support of it, but now they are concerned about some of the unintended consequences, and among those is the THC levels. And the recreational marijuana that's sold legally is significantly higher than what people, pardon the pun there, significantly higher than the kinds of marijuana people might have bought when they were living in college, or maybe they're using recreationally when they're buying from a friend of a friend or something like that. And the high THC counts of marijuana is causing increased cases of psychosis and addiction. I know it's been a popular refrain among the pro-marijuana crowd that marijuana is not addictive, but the high THC content marijuanas that are being sold legally now in some states like Oregon and Colorado are proving just the opposite, that it is showing, research shows, that it has addictive qualities that maybe we've not seen from lower THC count marijuana in the past.
Absolutely, Larry. And, for guys in our age bracket, this is not the kind of pot that was available when we were in college. This isn't your father's marijuana. There's some pretty potent stuff out there. And to say that it's not addictive and doesn't have psychosis types of effects, I still have family in Michigan. When I drive up to visit my 93-year-old grandmother, I would say, 5 out of every 8 billboards has some reference to marijuana, followed by the admonition, don't smoke marijuana and drive. So, it has all sorts of unintended consequences, which is why, my decision to vote yes was sort of a 51-49 decision. But at the end of the day, when people ask me why I voted yes, I give them one reason: compassion. I have compassion for those who are suffering, and it's their testimony about the relief that they can get from the pain that they feel that got me to vote yes.